More than 4 months ago, the Ukrainian military launched its large-scale counteroffensive in southern Ukraine and the Donbas. The goal was to pierce through the extensive Russian defenses and reach Melitopol on the coast of the Sea of Azov, thus splitting the Russian forces in Ukraine into two groups and severing the Kremlin's land bridge to Crimea. Due to a number of reasons, namely the extremely dense Russian fortifications, the Ukrainian forces have failed to achieve an operational breakthrough. With winter just around the corner, time is running out. Winter is coming. The Ukrainian forces have been once more bogged down between the Russian lines of defense in southern Ukraine, and the tactical breach that they achieved a few days ago has lost its momentum. What is worse for Kyiv is that there isn't much fighting weather left. The two combatants have up to 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks before the weather conditions become bad enough to affect large-scale military operations. The Russians understand this and are playing for time, knowing that they can do little on the offensive but that they can at least prevent the Ukrainians from advancing. The Ukrainian military leadership has stated its intention to continue with the counteroffensive even through the winter. However, the Ukrainian forces wouldn't be able to attack at the same pace. Russian casualties in Ukraine. The situation on the ground continues to be costly for the Russian forces. On the 589th day of the Kremlin's special military operation in Ukraine, the Russian military and pro-Russian separatist forces continue to take significant casualties. Since the start of the Ukrainian counteroffensive more than 4 months ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense has had to absorb a huge number of losses. Over the past 24 hours, the Russian forces lost almost 600 men killed, wounded, and captured, as well as almost 100 heavy weapons systems and vehicles. Moscow continues to lose a very large number of artillery pieces every day. Indeed, in the last 3 days alone, the Russian forces have lost more than 115 artillery guns and multiple launch rocket systems. Overall, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense claimed that as of Thursday, Ukrainian forces have killed and wounded approximately 280,470 Russian troops, destroyed 322 fighter, attack, bomber, and transport jets, 316 attack and transport helicopters, 4,745 tanks, 6,612 artillery pieces, 9,026 armored personnel carriers, and infantry fighting vehicles, 802 multiple launch rocket systems MLRS-21 warships, submarines, boats, and cutters, 8,962 vehicles, and fuel tanks, 540 anti-aircraft batteries, 5,121 tactical unmanned aerial systems, 946 special equipment platforms, such as bridging vehicles, and 4 mobile Iskander ballistic missile systems, and 1,530 cruise missiles shot down by the Ukrainian air defenses. Interestingly, Western intelligence assessments put the number of Russian casualties at more than 300,000 killed, wounded, and captured, but estimate that the material casualties are about half of what the Ukrainians are claiming. Being the party engaged in the fighting, Kyiv has better visibility on what is going on the ground, but it also might be tempted to occasionally round the numbers for propaganda purposes. Moscow said Friday it had destroyed 8 Ukrainian drones in western Russia, following a deadly Russian strike on a village across the front line. The Russian Defense Ministry said the attempted drone attacks on Belgorod and Kursk took place late Thursday. Kyiv regime's attempt to carry out a terrorist attack by an aircraft-type UAV on objects on the territory of the Russian Federation was thwarted, it said on Telegram. It said one drone was destroyed over Kursk at around 8:30 p.m. 17:30 GMT, and 7 were shot down over Belgorod and the surrounding region a few hours later. Belgorod Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov initially spoke of 6 drone strikes in his region, saying on Telegram that, according to preliminary data, no victims. Operational services are clarifying information about the consequences on the ground, he wrote. Since Ukraine launched its counter-offensive in June, Russia has weathered waves of drone attacks that have sporadically damaged buildings, including in Moscow. Russian officials have downplayed their significance. On Wednesday, Russia said it downed 31 Ukrainian drones in the same region, as well as in Bryansk, further north. Friday's announcements came after a Russian strike killed at least 51 people gathered for a wake in a Ukrainian village on Thursday, in an attack described by President Volodymyr Zelensky as absolute evil. The village of 330 people is around 30 kilometers 18 miles from the frontline town of Kupiansk, an area Russian forces have been pushing to recapture after they lost territory to Ukrainian troops last year. Ukrainian troops made headway in the eastern theater of their counteroffensive to oust Russian occupying forces but are under pressure further north, Ukrainian officials said on Thursday. Russian forces backed by Su-35 attack aircraft had started attacking along the front line in the direction of Makivka in the Luhansk region, a spokesperson for Ukraine's eastern group of forces said. The most difficult area is the Lyman-Kupiansk sector, the spokesperson, Ilya Yevlash, told Ukrainian television, referring to two towns recaptured by Ukrainian troops late last year but still subject to Russian assaults. The intensity of assaults there has increased. The enemy has chosen a new point, Makivka, and is directing all its main efforts into this direction. Of course, we are also repulsing enemy attacks and inflicting damage on forces and equipment. Fighting has flared up periodically near Lyman and Kupiansk, and Ukraine says Russia has redeployed more than 110,000 troops to the area. A Russian missile struck a store and an adjacent cafe on Thursday in the village of Roza, west of Kupiansk, killing 51 people as residents attended a service for a fallen Ukrainian soldier. Also in the east, Ukrainian forces are battling to regain ground near the devastated city of Bakhmut, seized by Russian forces in May after months of fighting. The General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces, in its evening report, said Kyiv's forces had achieved success south of Andriivka, a village south of Bakhmut captured by Ukrainian troops last month in Donetsk region. The report said Russian forces had unsuccessfully tried to regain lost positions in an area further south. Russian accounts of the fighting said Moscow's forces had repelled two Ukrainian attacks west of the Russian-held city of Donetsk. Reuters was unable to independently verify reports of battlefield activity from either side. In the southern theater, Kyiv's forces are pushing toward the Sea of Azov in an attempt to split Russian-occupied territory in two. The Ukrainian General Staff said its forces were pressing on with their southward advance in the Zaporizhia region and had repelled a Russian attack near the village of Robotyne. President Volodymyr Zelensky has acknowledged that the counteroffensive is proceeding more slowly than the military would like. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces reported on October 5 that Russia had lost 280,470 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes 580 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day.